And we're live, and I can't wait. I'm very excited because I have a very good friend of mine, a woman I really admire, and I'll invite her quickly. Hello, everyone, to another happy hour wine talk with Wine Simple. Um, Looking very forward to. There she is. Hello, my dear.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, dude?
I'm excellent. In New York, and just about ready to get to service. Hence, that's why I'm a little bit more formally dressed than you.
You look very New Yorkian right now.
Right?
Wait, hold on. This is what Seattle looks like right now.
No, I have everything. Apron, everything. Whatever you expect from a classically trained sommelier, including my taste.
Ooh! That's for, of course, making sure the wine is still delicious, right?
Yeah, well, currently I run also with this thing around because obviously we have to be careful.
Is that a Louboutin mask?
Uh, no, I have no idea. It's a thing.
It's pretty blingy. It's definitely got like
It fits,
New
yeah.
Yorkian black leather thing going on. I like it.
And gloves, and yeah. So I mean, listen, you have to stay safe. You have to maintain, and do the.
You are quiet. Am I quiet? Uh-oh.
We're back.
Am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Am I going in and out?
No, you're good. What are you doing? Anything technical? Cheeky, what we should expect from Wine Folly anyway?
With work, I'm doing lots of technical stuff right now.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
Let me start from the beginning. We met in Grand Cayman at the Cayman Cookout.
Yeah, we did. We were at
Echo off here. I put my ear.
Me too. I could do that too.
Excellent. Audio is working now. Good. I'm glad to hear.
All right.
And yes, I'm going to be at Aldo Sohm Wine Bar tonight and at Le Bernardin. I'm going to bounce back and forth. So we've met at the Cayman Cookout in Grand Cayman in January. And one thing I thought at first was, what kind of a badass person I'm traveling with all of a sudden, because I was with Raj Par, and our first ritual is always we go and smoke a cigar. And then you came around and said, oh, and we invited you because we were with you, and said, oh yeah, I would love to smoke a cigar with you. And said, wow, okay. And you were full on game there.
I like cigars. I have a history. My favorite photo of me ever is me smoking a cigar and filling up a glass from a Magnum bottle of Trento Doc.
Yeah.
And so I'm forever chasing that dragon.
So no, there's a very good Instagram actually. I have you on the boat when we went over to Caibo Beach and drinking wine and getting them some conch ceviche, which was just an amazing time when I got to meet you and got to admire actually that personality, how refreshing, how young, how you turn every stone, which leads me to the next thing, Wine Folly. Because in wine, typically everything can be often a little bit very traditional, very conservative, but you turned this thing upside down. When I look at your Instagram, it's just a joy how refreshing and easy, snippets and sound bites you send out daily. How did you get started on this? Or let me start from the beginning. How does someone start in the wine world like you and, get up and running and bring it obviously up to like a Wine Folly?
Well, you were telling me you went to like a school for service, right?
Oh yeah. In Europe, restaurant is a career restaurant scene. I went to restaurant high school. Had to become a chef, how to work in service, work also the front desk. So you have to do a diploma on that. I know this doesn't exist here, not nowhere nearly, but
So
it's an education.
So you get into wine well, at least I got into wine as the thing. It wasn't, I wouldn't say, because it was very aspirational, but it's definitely the like side job that you are always never really considering as a main job. And then it becomes a main job because you're so passionate about it and you realize it can actually be a job, but nobody's ever told you it's a job you can have, right? And so I was working as a graphic designer in Reno, Nevada. Don't ask me how I got there. It's a long story.
Everything
But
makes sense now.
but I was in Reno, Nevada, and in 2009 in January, I walked into the office at Reno Gazette Journal where I worked as an ad designer, and they had laid off my entire department. And so I lost my job, and all of my buddies at the office, the other designers who worked there, lost their jobs. And this was right after the 2008 market crash. A lot of people lost their job, and I was just one of many people. Sounds familiar, right? Like it feels like we're going through the same thing. It was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. I went into a wine bar to drink my sorrows away with the little bit of cash that I had left. And the guy who was working behind the counter was pretty cool. And he was like, you know, I started this wine bar 4 months ago and I haven't really had a day off. And you seem to know something about wine because I was already kind of excited about it. And that's how I got a job in the wine industry.
That's funny.
Yeah, I
But
was a glass polisher.
yeah, well, you start from the bottom, right?
Yep. I can really polish glass as well. And despite how many I've polished, I haven't broken that many.
But what sparked the fire?
It was something. I had a boyfriend. He's my husband now, but he was just my boyfriend then, and we were trying to figure out how to
Only
make.
you can say this and get away with that.
So, he was like, we were like kind of trying to be adult. We were like adulting in our early 20s, and one of the things we would do would get a bottle of wine, and he's a very sensitive guy. Like there's many layers to that, but I'm not so sensitive. But he would take the wine, and before he would drink it, he would smell it. And in him showing me that logic of like observation, we became obsessed with smelling wine. And I got a bottle that smelled like olives. And it was the first wine I'd ever had that didn't have like fruit flavors. It was like, I mean, an olive is a fruit, but it's a savory fruit. It's a salty fruit. And this wine was kind of savory and salty. And I was like, wow, that's awesome.
That's amazing. It's amazing
Yeah.
how that they can transfer. For me, again, for me, it was very different. Obviously, I went through my school and then I worked in the restaurant industry. I didn't like wine back then because I thought it's way too sour. Hated beer, hated it. I had more approach to Bacardi Coke. I know it's unimaginable as of today, but looking back, and then I had two Swiss couples. You know, while I worked in a restaurant, I worked a station, and they were at breakfast excited what should they eat for lunch and what should they eat for dinner and what to drink with it. And I thought, and they were passionate. And I thought, damn. And at one point, all of a sudden, they asked me, what can I recommend? You know, I had a basic knowledge, but basic. And then back in the day, there was no internet. So it wasn't as easy, you know, you go quickly, let me Google this quickly, let alone Google didn't exist either. So I started buying books and I started reading my afternoon break. I started reading and researching. I said, damn, this is interesting. And I could
Wow.
virtually travel the world. That's what excited me the most.
Yeah, actually, I think that's what excited me too, quite honestly, was this idea that it came from a place in the world, and for whatever reason, when they grew grapes, they tasted like olives over there, you know,
Yeah.
or whatever it was, right? you can guess this wine was probably had some Syrah in it
Yeah.
if you're a
No.
bit of a geek. So yeah, that's cool.
So we have already a couple questions, and I saw this question was repeating it twice already. What are you drinking?
Okay, so I just was talking with a winemaker in Napa Valley, and his name is Dan Petruski, and this wine is called Massican. He makes red wines there, but I actually really am into white wines right now. And he's like, "Oh, I have a winery that in Napa Valley that only makes white wines." And that's actually really rare for Napa. Like, you don't have a winery that only makes, you always make a Cabernet if you're in Napa Valley. So I was like, dude, I want to taste your wines. And he
And his
sent me
wines
this
are
one.
delicious.
This wine is crazy. It
Yeah.
has, you probably haven't heard of these. Well, you have. There's Tokai Friulano, Ribolla Jala,
So it's very no, it's very Friulian inspired.
and Chardonnay in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it smells kind of Italian when you
Yeah.
sniff it with your nose. It's crazy.
Yeah, no. And it's super delicious. You go often areas are labeled, but when you taste this one, you're completely off the field.
It's I don't even I'm really good at flavors and I can't even
Yeah.
I like it's got some beeswax, lime, lemon.
It's funny. My wine is from a little further south.
Where's your tell me?
um,
Hey!
Graham Tatoma, Santa Barbara.
I've heard of this wine, but I've never had it. Can you tell me
Uh,
about it? That wine I've been so curious about.
it's a Gruner Veltliner, of course, with me. But to me, this is one of the best Gruners outside of Austria. And Graham is such a cool guy. And look, to me, I mean, honestly, I have to go in service, and I need a little bit jet fuel to be to be fired up and ready to go. So, and
You're
Gruner
drinking
typically,
white wine too.
yeah. Oh,
Why do we both like white wine right now? What's up
well,
with that?
listen, if I would be after service, it's probably something would be different. But now it's just before, it's just something crisp, fresh, and structured. It's a delicious wine, and
I like your pick.
he's such a cool guy because he traveled the world and he learned in Austria also, unassuming, brought the knowledge back and see what he implemented. That's why what happens in California is amazing to see that right now, in terms of wine growing, not at the fires, huh?
It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So when you travel to go to because you travel, what are you looking for when you go to a wine country? And what do you try to get away from it?
Okay, so I went to art school, and you know this word because you're a German heritage. They have this word called Gestalt, and I learned it in art school. And the way it was described to me was that it is like if you stand back and you look at the tree, you don't look at the leaves and the trunk, and you don't look at anything else. You look at the sort of the whole tree. When I go to a region, I try to see the Gestalt of the region. And usually that involves, if your training is high, you can very quickly see the shape of that tree, the Gestalt of a region. But if you are still learning, we're always learning, every region is new, there's usually something about the trunk or the leaves that affects that shape ultimately. So when I go to a region, I'm really trying to ultimately understand it as a whole with many parts in it. And I'm a very visual thinker, so it almost comes together visually in my mind.
Huh. Gestalt is for me such a funny looking word when you say this because it's obviously a German word. You can
Do I
reference this also on humans.
do I say it right? How are you say it? If you
Gestalt.
Gestalt?
Yeah.
All right, well, you
Sometimes
know.
the accent works in my direction, but occasionally only.
Yeah, it sounds better when you say it.
I don't know about that, but so that's what you're looking for. What if you go to a restaurant? Because you're such a now a wine savvy person, you look for smells, you look for flavors. When you order a wine, because often people are intimidated, right? When they meet wine experienced people, what are you looking for when you order a glass of wine or a bottle of wine on a list?
Actually, that's what makes a great wine region or a great restaurant is that the wine is part of the tree in the trunk of the restaurant. Like it's an extension of the restaurant and it works with everything else. So I'm actually looking for the gestalt in everything in that
Huh.
sense. And that's how I actually judge quality in a lot of things is I try to define what is balance in what it is. Like if you're a New York restaurant and I'm looking at your list, my expectations are much different if you're a little Woodinville restaurant and you happen to have a wine list. And so I can have a 5-star experience in Woodinville, and I can also have a 5-star experience in New York, but they're going to be very different, right? Because of the everything that makes them. So when I go to a place and I'm very excited about the place, and the place actually is a reflection of itself. And I have an example. I went to this winery. This was pre-COVID, and I was with my mother-in-law, and she's 65 and she's single now because her husband passed away.
Hmm.
And she's like, I like to go to this winery on Friday nights. They have a really cool wine tasting event. And I showed up to this winery called Matthews Estate in Woodinville, Washington, which is where I live. And there was a band playing, and there were all these like older people, kind of like my mother-in-law there, and they were all partying and dancing. And it was like going to like a time warp. Like I've never seen anything like this. Where it was like I walked into like a party with a bunch of like Hasidic Jews, and they had their own culture going, and like the big furry hats like you see them wearing sometimes, and like you don't really understand what's going on. When I walked into Matthews, I saw that same thing, and they were all drinking wine and dancing with these like fancy glasses, and I was like, I have found culture. So the wine tasted great because it was unique to the everything around it. It fit in perfectly. And that's what was so exciting about it. So I always look for that uniqueness of a place, of a time, of a culture. So when we were in Cayman Islands and you were like, we get cigars, I wanted to see if that was going to be like, and it was actually kind of like that. It was like going to a crazy place because we walked into that cigar store and suddenly I was in Cayman Islands. Finally, I had arrived.
I mean, look, this is always context driven. This, to me, of course, I don't smoke cigars regularly, but once I'm there, I'm again the climate works through, the humidity is just perfect. Everything, the surround, everything works and comes together. It's like having strawberries when they're in peak season. And when sitting in the field, it just will taste so much better. And it's such an amazing experience. And the same thing there. But often we're so stuck in our daily work, we don't really go into that. And I see this at many people. Um, to me, it's all context driven. And of course, look, I work obviously at Le Bernardin in a 3 Michelin star place, but sometimes, you go to a small little diner or a small little restaurant or a pizzeria. And I asked the sommelier or I asked, what do you like to drink? What's good right now? Because I don't want to look through a wine list. And one thing I've always noticed, people get hung up, and I like to people watch. What are the fears they sometimes have by ordering a glass of wine? And
Yeah,
it's actually hysterical for me because you program yourself already for the unpleasant experience. You literally just wait for it rather than you just being excited about it. Because what's the problem? They pour you a glass of wine and say, yeah, I don't really like it as much. They give you happily something different.
yeah, I'm a little bit fearless. Like,
Well, I've noticed that.
I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure, well, that somebody prescribed me with ADHD when I was 31. But apparently I had it before that too. Uh, so I've sort of, I don't really have a filter. I think that's what is one of the, you can either see it as a negative or a benefit, depending on who you are and how you deal with your stuff. And I sort of saw it as a benefit that I'm going to be, no matter what, I am going to be completely honest. And so I look for that in sort of everything that I do, and everything that I find great in the world is sort of, is it really representing yourself, or are you putting a false narrative in front of yourself because you know that is more desirable?
Yeah.
I do dye my hair though. That is a false narrative.
That's so typical. That statement, I mean.
I have mouse brown hair and I think I'm a black-headed person.
That's why I was
And
wondering before. I didn't want to say anything
yeah.
because from the last time we've met.
Oh yeah, that was my natural color.
Yep. Okay. So I pay attention to those little details. Um, I mentioned Wine Folly obviously before. Why did you get into Wine Folly, and why did you created it like?
I've always lived on the internet. I was in '98. How old was I in '98? I was 15. I think I was 15.
Ah,
And so that was kind of when Google was really getting started. And so I've always sort of lived with the internet, and I was building websites back then. You know, as a 15-year-old kid, you have a lot of time. And my dad is a electrical engineer. So I always felt like I was part of the wave that is the internet, which now everybody lives on, and here we are together. So when I started Wine Folly, it was my version of what I would make as a computer internet person to represent wine on the internet. I was trying to make a world of wine on the internet, and so Wine Folly was that world. And so it's changed and grown since then, and I have very audacious goals on where it should go and where I'd like it to be. But back then, it was just me doing it. It was myself and my husband. And so we did what we could with what we had. We did a lot together. But now it's grown. We have about 10 people working on Wine Folly now, full time.
huh. That's some pressure, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
No, because
You gotta
I've,
pay for their lives, and
yeah.
they have kids and
No, it's
stuff.
responsibility.
And we've got to do like health benefits and stuff like that. And yeah, it's a real company.
Yeah. No, it's what I was very surprised because last year I was in Europe, and a friend of mine runs a sommelier association and runs a whole sommelier educational program.
Wow.
And he all of a sudden said, you know, I looked at this Wine Folly and it's this amazing work she does. And I said, what? Where's this coming from? Because I mean, obviously people know you in the United States. I mean, duh. But then I thought that Europeans all of a sudden, and even people then in Austria would get awareness of you. I was really astonished because typically everything is so traditional. Look, I came from my sommelier education is very formal, it's very rigid, it's very precise. You know, it's very scripted also. And to me, that gave me kind of, you know, I mean, at wine you never cease to learn. That's the beautiful part on wine. But it's just it's interesting to observe that how much all of a sudden they put awareness onto you. And I was, first of all, it made me happy because I admire you and admire your work. But the second thing, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Well, you know, we weren't always loved, you know, when we were getting started. You know, people, maybe beginners really liked our work, and that's always been the case. But like wine experts, I've gotten so much hate over the years from other experts who think that I'm stupid about wine, and because I describe it in a simple way. And so a lot of building my confidence has been to like actually like get over the haters and like not really like hear what they're saying, and because there's always exceptions to the rule with wine information, but also acknowledge like what my goal is. And my goal has always been to make the pie bigger. You know, my friend said that about me once. His name's Morgan. He actually lives in New York, Morgan Harris. And he always said, like, you know, we're always fighting over the pieces of pie, but you're trying to make the pie bigger, make more people excited about wine. And I was like, yes, exactly. That's exactly right. But it's difficult to ignore the haters. You definitely see them and you acknowledge what they're doing and what they're trying to do. But I've learned a lot about the what is it? The fallacies, the Greek fallacies, like, you know, ad hominem and all the Greek fallacies. Turns out a lot of these haters are using some classic Greek fallacies to try to break down my persona, and I see through their bullshit.
I mean, look, wine was never as popular as these days. Look where wine is as a lifestyle product in the United States. It's amazing to see how far we've gotten with that. Of course, all of a sudden it's getting politicized and things becoming dogmatic. And it's often difficult, you know, to do the right thing, to support the community, to bring new people and, you know, raise them and bring them up.
Yeah.
And staying out of the political components, because sometimes you have to give an opinion. But I grew up, you know, with my background, I grew up with criticism. And criticism sometimes is not something what you like to hear, but it makes you think and it makes you improve.
That's true. Like, what if I love the haters who actually tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can take it and do it better. Sometimes that critical feedback is really good if you can take it. You have to assess, is this person doing a Greek fallacy because they're just being ridiculous, or are they actually telling me something constructive that I can learn from? And I always knew that it was constructive if what they told me burned and it had to do with the quality and accuracy of my content. Like, that was the thing that bothered me the most about the feedback that I got when we were running the blogs. And now we have a system where if we get negative feedback, we update the articles, we correct things, we like going through and fixing things constantly. And I had to create that system through that pressure of accuracy being an issue. And what I've learned is that wine information is in a constant state of being accurate and inaccurate because it's constantly changing. And so what you have to do is create a system for sort of constant improvement. And that's kind of where we're at right now with the blog and with what we're building in the future. But yeah, that's cool.
So let me ask you a question, because I obviously work at Le Bernardin and have Aldo Sohm wine bar, and I work in a 3 Michelin star restaurant. So therefore my focus is always on food and wine pairings and how to elevate experiences. And I've noticed recently you made this junk food and wine pairing. And at first I had to laugh about it. No, but listen, I've gotten requests like this too, but again, this is so out of my experience, you know, and I feel like when you go into something like that, you want to attach your heart to it. But the way how you've done it, it's actually something where, you know, to me, how do you wrap your head around it? And I found it so aspirational because, again, that's, how did you get onto this?
Well, I just started thinking about like my goal is to make the pie bigger. So what do normal people, what is my normal friends and people that I've grown up with? Because I kind of grew up poor. And I remember the things that we loved. Like, I loved elephant ears at at the fair. And down when I lived in Los Angeles, it was all about churros. And, you know, if you go to a baseball game, you get a hot dog. And depending on who you are, you might cover it with like mayonnaise and cheese, or you might like a mustard and sauerkraut combination. And so suddenly it's like, why don't we pair wine with like the foods that we lust after as normal Americans? And so that was, yeah, fried dough. Anything that is fried dough. So that was like where that inspiration came from. And I eat now, even when I'm eating now, like food is changing in front of our eyes. Like we used to be so on this French, like a la minute, like cooking style where it was like egg, butter, like it has got egg and butter in it for sure, somewhere in the ingredients. And now we have like more vegan food and more different cultural foods being represented. So we need to work on the wine pairings with those because that's very important. And I think that's one of the reasons why our wine preferences are changing so much. Like why I have been digging a lot of white wines lately, right? Is because what am I eating, right? Maybe I'm eating something totally vegetarian. And it
That can be tricky.
Hmm?
Changes the wine, huh?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
regions or grapes do you think do you like right now?
I like, I mean, I like everything. They're all my children.
But what are you passionate about?
I've really been interested, like, there's several categories that I'm interested in. I love how tannin hits my palate. So I'm interested in wines that express tannin in different ways. So for some grape varieties that do like whole cluster fermentation, geeky winemaking term, that where you put the bunches with the skin with the stems of the grapes into the fermentation, it adds tannin to the wine and it also reduces the acidity a little bit. And so I like to taste wines that have like different kinds of tannin. And that's one of the things. So I like a range of different red wines for that reason. And then I also like, I've been really digging white wines that use oak that aren't Chardonnay.
That's a topic in itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, if you would be a wine or a grape, what would you be?
I would probably be, and I hate to admit it because I always think I'm much more fancy than that. But I would probably be Zinfandel. That would
Hmm,
be my grape.
really?
Uh, yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah,
why is
well,
that?
I think it's actually pretty underappreciated. Uh, its quality. It will always love you with its fruitiness, but it has various qualities of fruits depending on where it grows or the environment that it's in. And I think that is very representative of my personality when I'm at my best, is that I'm always fruity, sometimes high tannin, sometimes high color, sometimes low color, but always fruity. It's whenever I'm not being my best, I'm a little bit more savory.
Interesting. I like,
How about you? What is your grape variety?
phew. Mm, I wouldn't call a grape. I've been recently asked this question. I thought it's such an interesting question, but I didn't put a grape variety on. I put it as a champagne because
I have asked so many people this question, and you guys all say champagne.
really,
And
but I
you
can.
might very well be champagne, but every single person I talk to says that they're champagne. Everyone on this call, write down what you think you are. Challenge is out there.
Yeah,
I want to see how many of you are champagne. This is my question. So you're high acid, is what you're saying?
no,
And you
but
smell like Parmesan cheese.
interest. So you challenge my statement here.
What makes you champagne? I'm okay with it. You can be champagne if you want
Bubbly,
to.
bubbly,
You are bubbly.
yeah, versatile.
You're versatile. Yeah, you
Right?
are versatile.
You can. I try to be put out in many different people and will get along with everyone.
Yeah, and you get the party started.
I try to. Plus, I love different cultures, and champagne you can drink pretty much in any kind of cultured food, with very few exceptions. It will run out, but very few. And
You might actually be champagne.
I like to travel also, and champagne travels.
It goes everywhere. It
Yeah,
does.
and
Huh.
yeah, but I also love the freshness. I love the versatility because champagne often is brushed off as
And
something
you're
sparkly.
expensive.
Me, I'm not expensive.
Well, but you have, but yeah, you are. You can find me for $10 in the supermarket on a good day.
But you can give me a beer and I'm just as happy. That's what people often misread. If you give me, I mean, I have a little hard time with some Bud Lights. That's not my cup of tea. But if you give me a regular, crisp, fresh beer, I'm just as a happy camper.
I love that nobody has said champagne in the thing, so you might get to own it in this group of
I guess
people.
so.
I think you might be champagne. It's funny because I've heard a lot of people say champagne, and your reasons are actually, I think you might be champagne. It works for me.
See, to
I
me, I would have not
also,
justified you, and never would have put you as a Zinfandel either.
really, well, so one thing I've noticed about my personality is some people just don't like me. They
Really?
just like it's just very difficult. Like it's very difficult for they're just like, you know what? I don't like sweet fruity things. That's not for me. And it's the end of the conversation. But if they had happened to like dive into the range of what is Zinfandel out there, they might realize that it grows like Pinot Noir. They do whole cluster fermentation, so it can have tannin. It grows in an amazing different amount of environments. There's all these things about Zinfandel that are actually really complex and interesting, but you have to get over that, over like the thing that everybody says about Zin.
Yeah, but that's like saying, I don't like Chardonnay, but I love white Burgundy.
Yeah, or
No, no, no,
I
but
only drink Chablis.
uh, I like Zinfandel. I love especially old Zinfandels, if you can
That's a
get them.
tough. Yeah.
Like old Riches, they're phenomenal.
I'm worried I might age like Zinfandel. I'm gonna be like kind of
I
brown
love
and translucent when I'm older. That's okay though.
I love old Zins. That to me is one of the really magic American whites, and it's so underappreciated. That's the other funny part. No one chases that wine, or very few.
Yeah, that's true. I don't see a lot of Zin in collector sellers.
Right? And if you have some braised short ribs, oh my God, this is just to die for.
Chinese five spice, like prime the yeah ribs or whatever.
Yeah. So so that to me. Now, obviously, you're a very tech savvy guy. You're a very intense personality. How do you how do you balance that out? I mean, often what we both do on on social media, we obviously put out a person, but often how does Madeline does balance it out?
Well, I have a lot of energy, and it's actually an issue. I must exercise at least 3 to 4 times a week just to expel that energy. Otherwise, I get very negative. And if anyone else is listening to this and has this experience, I know we know what it's like. You get all this bouncy internal energy in your brain and you can't expel it any other way. So I ride bicycles and I also skateboard and I used to rock climb and I love to swim. I like open water swimming in lakes. So like lots of energy dispelling activities are generally good in my book. And because I was a little bit of a punk growing up, I tend to prefer alternative sports. So like motorcycling and like car stuff and skateboarding and things like that. But yeah, that's what I do. How about you? What do you do? What do you do in your time off?
Uh, I'm very one-dimensional. I love riding my bicycle and do this very intense.
Yeah,
And
you're
try to,
focused, like champagne.
yeah, I try to be. When I'm not good, I get upset. It makes me really angry, and that's why I train really hard. and just to hold up with my friends, because nothing kills me more when when I see them disappearing on the horizon.
Oh yeah, that's the worst. So when I'm riding bicycles, if there are people in front of me, I used to have this hill, and I named it Madelines Hill, going between me and work, and it's about maybe a 400-foot climb. And I would race up that hill so fast to just try to get in front of everyone on the trail that I would like almost, it feels like you're going to have a heart attack. Like you feel like your blood in your throat, like your heartbeat in your throat almost. Like it feels like it's choking you. It's so intense. But I did get Queen of the Hill for like a run of like a month on that hill because of this drive to want to be in front.
And I know that feeling. Every wine after that just tastes delicious.
Yeah.
That's what I like on cycling the very best. You can drink and everything. Life is great, and every wine, every food, everything is delicious. Yeah. And let me ask you one more question, because we both come in from such opposite educational, directions. You have with such a free spirit. Me, I'm so, drilled to the core, in a
You're
sense, and
focused.
had to be very rigid. And I've met this actually when we wrote with Alice Fearing, we talked about the same thing, and she's obviously very natural wine. And it was I interviewed her, and it was such a phenomenal interview. And while I thought we were completely the polar opposite, we were both astonished. We meet in the middle because we ultimately look for delicious, whatever that is. And we both are actually a little bit, surprised and struck by that. And I've noticed this with you too. So, what do you recommend for a young person? How to approach this intimidating topic, wine?
Well, you have to know what delicious is, your version of delicious is. So, in order to do that, you need to challenge yourself with a task. We actually are doing one on the blog right now. It's called, you can look it up on Instagram. It's called 34 Wines, 34 Weeks. And the challenge is to taste what's out there. You need to know the variety of wines that's out there. And then you have enough information to go, I don't like this one right now. I don't like that one right now, but I like all of these. And I want to explore more of those. And so for a beginner, it's a really good activity to do is to start tasting more things that you might not normally taste in order to expand your palate, just in order to have a good repertoire. It's like if you like cars, you should drive the different types of cars out there. At least like go to the lot and convince the sales guy to let you drive the car. Just so you know what it feels like. Like I went and drove BMWs and I decided I am not a I love the idea of BMW as a brand and I love them, but I am not a BMW driver. This is going to sound weird because I don't necessarily like the brand of Mercedes at all. But when I drove those Mercedes, I was like, this is more my style. Like maybe I want an older one, like a little quirkier older one, but I'm more like an old lady in a Mercedes than an old lady in a BMW. Like when I cap out, I need a fancy car. So what's it going to be? Which one is it going to be? Right? So you got to try what's out there. And so we're doing this 34 wines, 34 weeks where we have a list of wines. And it's simple stuff like Gamay from France or Gruner Veltliner from Austria or Cava from Spain. And so your challenge is to try one different wine a week. And we basically have the list. You just have to find the wine yourself. We don't have to, not a specific bottle, but just a style. And by doing that, you force yourself to like, do I like this wine or not? And that's the challenge for a beginner is to have maybe a structured way of knowing what's out there and then tasting through it and then making up your own mind because you're going to have a different taste than me and Aldo, and we both know what delicious is in our own book, but maybe you're not there. But you know what's weird? Why is it that you and me tend to like the same things now? Like when we're together, we like the similar wines. Why?
You just said I have expensive taste. Are you admitting this right now, or Am I calling you out on your own statement right now?
Well, I'm just saying that, like, why do I like the wines that you like?
I think I think about one thing because look, if you taste a fair bit and if you have an open mind about it, you come you come together because you have enough drinking experience. You can put all the dots together, and often they meet each other, and
Yeah,
sometimes not, and that's fair. And then we
we
can bring
actually
a
agree.
debate, a positive one.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'm excited about in wine right now that I can't make sense of is the whole natural wine movement, literally Alice Faring's thing, because some of those wines I taste and my brain goes, this is faulty, because I've been trained. But then if it's a good wine, like I actually like the fault, like it's like maybe it's bubbly and it shouldn't be, or something like that. That used to be considered a fault. And now it's like, oh, it's got some bubbles, it's got some spritz, and it's got this sour flavor. And you're like, it's kind of like kombucha. I like it. So, like, I'm excited about natural wine because it's actually changing what is good for even people like me and you. Maybe you,
uh,
maybe me, maybe not.
Now listen, I was often very strong on the conventional side with writing Wine Simple and with this great talk with Alice Fearing. I thought about one thing and I started exploring this world more because I wanted to understand it more because you cannot criticize what you don't understand. And if you don't have answered every single question you have still there. I mean, you will never understand it everything. And again, I put a major effort in right now. I don't think even, and this summer, because I was off, I spent in Austria and I've had this amazing opportunity. I spent a good amount of time with Christian Cheetah because he lives just a couple of 100 meters away from Gerhard Kracher.
Who is, just for those of us who don't know, Christian?
He's the OG of natural wines. But I don't think he wants to be called that way either. He's very sensitive. Again, he's often described as the enfant terrible. I asked him this once. I said, "Why do they call you this?" Because what I see is actually something very different. And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Actually, it's someone, yes, who experienced a lot, who tried a lot, who was maybe a little ahead of its time in that modern version. But I see a person who is very, very sensitive because if I make a funny comment on your wine, you become very passive. So I don't understand that comparison." And then at the same token, I went to see Eva Chepe from Village and went also to see Sepp Muster. And I was going back and forth between them on several, while the grapes were maturing. So I could even taste the grapes and went with them into the vineyards. And then I started questioning them about each other. And boy, all of a sudden, a whole new ocean opened up. And I became very friendly then with Christian. And Catherine calls us, we have a bromance because we drank champagne. And then we were laughing and we were questioning each other. And of course, we were arguing because sometimes also. But that makes a great friendship. No, you don't have to be always the same opinion. A
Yeah,
good dialogue, a good argument has to be part of it. And
it's
now,
true.
do I like every natural wine? No. But do I like every conventional wine? No. And that's good. But you have to open your mind and taste. You might have overlooked something which you formed an opinion, and again, you've overlooked it. And with air, it tastes, everything opens up. And yeah, try Christian Cheetah's wines. Now he comes out. He's very heavy on rosé. And I'm not going to say more to that because he thinks about the layers what rosés bring in and the fruit what rosés bring in. They just landed in the I think Jenny and Francois just got it in. I saw an email earlier. It's fascinating.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I think you might be champagne. You might be one of the few who gets to call that. I like
really?
it. I don't
Now,
know.
now, first
I
you
think that
argued
you
my
might be.
answer, and now you're accepting it.
Well, I have to go through a denial phase.
So yeah, So that natural wine, so right now I keep trying quite a bit. And I find it interesting. But I'm trying to look always for the positive thing and not being dogmatic about it. And I think either side is very important. Who does that? Because ultimately, in my opinion, wine's supposed to bring people together, not apart. It's not politics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is what we drink after we're exhausted at the
exactly.
polls. And
Cool.
we can come together. So
Yeah.
salute to that.
Cheers to that. Thank you very much because I have to go into service now
Salut.
and make a couple of people happy with wine. And I hope to see you soon
I
when we
hope to
can
see you
travel
soon.
again.
Me too. Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye,
Paul.
everyone.